What if a hidden book, locked away for centuries, held secrets that could reshape everything you know about giants, fallen angels, and a lost paradise? Have you ever wondered why some truths were buried, sealed in the shadows of history, as if too dangerous for the world to know? Over 2,000 years ago, a mysterious text called the Book of Enoch emerged, its pages whispering tales so shocking they were banned by early church leaders. This ancient manuscript spoke of the Nephilim, towering giants whose thunderous steps shook the earth, leaving trails of awe and terror in their wake. It revealed the Watchers, angels who defied heaven's sacred laws in a rebellion that altered the course of human history forever. And it promised a paradise, a radiant realm of eternal hope hidden beyond the veil of time, awaiting those who seek God's truth. These weren't mere myths, they were divine warnings, prophecies, and truths that echo in our world today, stirring questions deep within our souls. Why was this book erased from the Bible? Could its secrets hold answers to the doubts and longings burning in your heart? The Book of Enoch isn't just a relic, it's a mirror reflecting our own search for meaning, faith, and redemption in a world often shadowed by chaos. In this video, we'll uncover 3 profound revelations: the chilling origins of the Nephilim, born from forbidden unions that defied God's order. Second, the tragic fall of the Watchers, whose pride and rebellion unleashed chaos across the heavens and the earth. And third, the enduring hope of a hidden paradise, still calling out to those who seek God's light beyond the veil of time. But before we dive into this forbidden history, let me ask you, have you ever felt that there's more to God's story than what you've been told? If so, then this journey is for you. Let's step together into a world long forgotten by time and uncover the truths that were never meant to remain hidden. Long ago, in a land trembling with divine mystery, a sacred story began to unfold. Picture a world untouched by the scars of time, where jagged mountains pierced the heavens like silent sentinels, their peaks kissed by clouds heavy with divine promise. Rivers wove shimmering threads through lush, untamed wilderness, their waters sparkling under a sky ablaze with stars. This was the dawn of humanity, a time when God's presence lingered in the whispering winds, His voice a gentle echo in the hearts of men, as if creation itself hummed with the Creator's glory. The air was thick with wonder, a sacred harmony binding heaven and earth. At the heart of this narrative stands Enoch, a man so righteous that Genesis 5:24 records he walked with God and was taken to heaven without tasting death, a mystery that sets him apart in biblical history. His era was one of awe, where the veil between the divine and the mortal was gossamer thin, and celestial beings watched over humanity with a mix of reverence and longing. The Book of Enoch, attributed to this prophet, paints a vivid cinematic tapestry, a world of breathtaking beauty, yet poised on the brink of cosmic conflict, where every choice carried the weight of eternity. But beneath the beauty, a cosmic fracture had already begun. But beneath this serene beauty, a subtle discord began to stir. Enoch's writings, preserved through centuries, describe a divine council, a celestial assembly where God's will was proclaimed in radiant splendor. Angels, known as the Watchers, were tasked with guarding humanity. These were no ordinary messengers, but beings of radiant light, their eyes fixed on the fragile lives below, their voices once joined in a heavenly chorus that shook the stars. The earth was a masterpiece of divine artistry. Verdant valleys bloomed with vibrant life, golden harvests sustained growing tribes, and starlit skies stretched endlessly, singing of God's boundless glory. Humanity multiplied, building homes of stone and altars of faith, their devotion a flickering flame in a world steeped in mystery. Enoch, a scribe of divine visions, walked among them, his heart attuned to the heavens, his steps guided by a faith so pure it drew him closer to God than any man before. He sensed the weight of what was to come, a shift in the cosmic order that would test the fidelity of both angels and men. His book captures not only the splendor of creation, but also the first whispers of rebellion, the faint cracks in a perfect divine harmony that would soon shatter the world. Yet the true danger lay hidden, waiting to erupt. This was no ordinary time. Enoch's visions, as recorded in 1 Enoch 14-36, carried him beyond the earthly realm to heavens where angels sang in harmonious chorus and a paradise awaited the faithful. In 1 Enoch 32, he describes the garden of righteousness, where the tree of life stood, its branches heavy with eternal promise, its roots drinking from streams of living water that sparkled like diamonds. He beheld the throne of God, blazing with justice and mercy, surrounded by cherubim, whose wings thundered with unending praise. These glimpses shaped his sacred mission to warn humanity of the consequences of straying from God's path and to preserve his truth for generations yet unborn. But the world was shifting. The watchers' gaze grew restless, their hearts swayed by forbidden desires that would soon unravel the harmony of creation. The earth, once a reflection of heaven's glory, stood on the cusp of chaos, its beauty a fragile veneer over a brewing storm that threatened to engulf all that God had made. Still, the harmony of this ancient world was not destined to endure. Enoch's role as a prophet set him apart, a lone voice in a world teetering on the edge of eternity. He walked among men, teaching them to honor their Creator, urging them to cling to faith amid growing temptation. His writings, later hidden from the world, were a testament to a time when God's presence was near, when miracles were woven into the fabric of daily life, and when the divine and human stood in delicate balance. Yet, the Book of Enoch is more than a historical record. It's an invitation to step into this world, to feel its beauty, its tension, its impending tragedy. It challenges us to see ourselves in this narrative, to consider our own place in God's eternal story. Were we in Enoch's time, would we have sensed the coming storm? Would we have heeded his call to righteousness? This ancient setting, with its blend of divine intimacy and looming peril, mirrors our own world, where faith is tested and choices shape our destiny. The stage was set, the players in place, humanity, angels, and God himself, ready for a drama that would echo through the ages, a drama that still resonates in our hearts today. But peace was fleeting, for a rebellion was brewing that would shake the foundations of creation. When pride took root, the heavens trembled, and the earth paid a heavy price. The Book of Enoch unveils a cosmic crisis that shook the very foundations of creation, the rebellion of the Watchers. These angels, entrusted with guarding humanity, succumbed to pride and forbidden desire, their hearts ensnared by the beauty of human daughters. Defying God's sacred command, as recorded in 1 Enoch 6, they descended to earth, taking wives in a union that birthed the Nephilim, towering giants whose strength and savagery overwhelmed the world. Their footsteps shattered mountains, their voices shook valleys, and the earth itself recoiled under their reign. These monstrous beings, born of heaven and earth, were not mere legends, but a catastrophic breach of divine order, plunging creation into a maelstrom of chaos and despair. Genesis 6:4 hints at their existence, calling them mighty men of old, men of renown. But Enoch's account reveals their true terror, a force so destructive it threatened to unravel God's plan for humanity, their footsteps crushing hope beneath their weight. Yet the tragedy ran deeper than their monstrous offspring. The Watchers' betrayal extended far beyond their forbidden unions. In 1 Enoch 8, they taught humanity secrets meant only for heaven, arts of war, sorcery, metallurgy, and cosmetics that fueled greed, vanity, and destruction. This unleashed a tidal wave of corruption as men turned from God, seduced by newfound power and knowledge. The earth groaned under the Nephilim's tyranny, their insatiable appetites devouring crops, livestock, and, according to Enoch, even human lives. Villages burned, fields lay barren, and the air grew thick with the cries of the oppressed. Enoch's visions paint a harrowing picture, a world spiraling into darkness where bloodshed stained the ground and hope flickered like a dying ember. The righteous, dwindling in number, lifted their prayers to heaven, their voices a faint chorus against the roar of chaos, trusting in a God who saw every tear and felt every wound, as Psalm 34:18 affirms, promising God is near to the brokenhearted. But the consequences were only beginning to unfold. The Nephilim's reign was not just physical destruction, it was a spiritual wound, tearing at the bond between heaven and earth. Humanity, once close to their Creator, drifted into idolatry, erecting altars to false gods inspired by the Watcher's teachings. Cities crumbled under the giant's weight, families were torn apart by violence, and creation itself groaned for deliverance, a cry later echoed in Romans 8:22. The Book of Enoch captures God's anguish, a divine heart broken by the betrayal of both angels and men. Enoch, witnessing this chaos, recorded these events not as mere history, but as a warning, a desperate call to return to the God who had not forsaken his people, even in their darkest hour. The Watcher's rebellion was a cosmic tragedy, a fall from grace that mirrored humanity's own struggles with sin, pride, and temptation. Their actions set a chain reaction in motion, one that would demand a divine response to restore what had been lost, a response that would test the faith of the righteous and the mercy of God himself. Still, the darkness was not the end of the story. The crisis reached its zenith as God's patience waned. The Watchers, once radiant beings of light, now stood condemned, their rebellion a stark warning to all creation, as 2 Peter 2:4 later affirms, noting their imprisonment in chains of darkness. The Nephilim, symbols of unchecked power and sin, became a curse upon the earth, their legacy one of ruin and despair. Enoch's role as a prophet grew ever more critical. He was not just a scribe, but a voice crying out in the wilderness, urging humanity to turn back to God before the final judgment fell. The problem was not merely the giants or the fallen angels, it was the ripple effect of sin, fracturing the divine harmony that God had woven into creation. This was a world on the brink, a civilization teetering between redemption and destruction, and Enoch stood at its heart, a beacon of faith amid the gathering storm. His account challenges us to reflect. How often do we, like the Watchers, chase desires that lead us astray? The tragedy of this ancient rebellion is a mirror, reflecting our own battles with sin and the urgent need for God's grace in our lives today. Yet in this darkness, a flicker of hope remained, waiting to ignite. Even in ruin, God's justice and mercy began to weave a path to redemption. As the earth drowned in chaos, God's response was both swift and profound, a testament to his unyielding justice and boundless love. The Book of Enoch, in chapters 10 and 12, recounts his judgment. The Watchers, once guardians of humanity, were bound in chains, cast into a prison of eternal darkness to await their final reckoning, a fate echoed in Jude 1:6, which speaks of angels kept in chains for judgment. The Nephilim, their monstrous offspring, faced divine wrath, their reign of terror ended by God's unassailable decree, their bodies destined to perish in the coming flood, foretold in 1 Enoch 10. Yet, this was not merely punishment, it was the first step toward restoring a creation broken by sin, a divine act to heal what had been torn apart by rebellion. God's heart, though grieved by the betrayal, burned with a love that sought to redeem, not destroy, his beloved creation, as Lamentations 3:22-23 reminds us of his steadfast love that never ceases. But God's plan reached far beyond judgment. Enoch, chosen as a mediator, bore a burden few could fathom. God sent him to confront the fallen Watchers, delivering a message of condemnation that echoed through the heavens. Picture the scene. A mortal man, standing before beings of cosmic power, their eyes once radiant now dimmed by shame, declaring their doom with unwavering courage. Enoch's faith was his shield, rooted in his intimate walk with God, a bond so deep that he was called Friend of the Almighty, as Genesis 5:24 implies. His mission was twofold: to pronounce judgment on the Watchers and to preserve God's truth, recording divine promises for generations yet unborn. In 1 Enoch 12, he speaks to the Watchers unflinching, his words a testament to his trust in God's justice. His writings became a beacon for the righteous, urging them to hold fast amid the gathering storm, to cling to faith when the world seemed lost to darkness, a call that resonates with Hebrews 11:6's promise that God rewards those who seek him. Yet the story was far from over. Humanity, complicit in the Watchers' rebellion, faced consequences for their descent into corruption. Enoch's visions foretold a great flood, a cleansing that would wash away the stain of sin, sparing only Noah, a righteous man, and his family, as Genesis 6:9 confirms. This was not destruction for its own sake, but a merciful reset, a chance for creation to begin anew under God's covenant, sealed with the rainbow in Genesis 9:13. The righteous, though few, clung to hope, their prayers mingling with Enoch's as they trusted in a God who never abandons his people, a truth later echoed in Hebrews 13:5. Enoch's writings became a lifeline, a testament to divine justice tempered by love, a call to perseverance in the face of overwhelming odds. The flood was coming, but God's mercy ensured a remnant would survive, carrying his promise into a new era, a promise that would one day find fulfillment in Christ, the ultimate Redeemer. The judgment of the Watchers and Nephilim was a warning to all creation. Sin cannot stand in God's holy presence. Yet, within this justice lay mercy, a promise of redemption that would unfold through the ages. Enoch's role as a prophet bridged heaven and earth, his visions offering glimpses of a paradise where the faithful would one day dwell, free from sorrow and sin. In 1 Enoch 25, he describes a mountain of God, a place of eternal rest for the righteous, a vision that prefigures Revelation 21's New Jerusalem, radiant with God's glory. His courage inspired the righteous to endure, even as the flood loomed on the horizon. The Book of Enoch challenges us to trust God's plan, even when the world seems lost to chaos. Imagine standing in Enoch's place, tasked with such a mission. Would your faith hold firm? This ancient response reminds us that God's actions, though fierce, are always purposeful, guiding his people toward a future bathed in his eternal light. It invites us to reflect on our own lives. When faced with our own giants, do we trust in God's justice and mercy, or do we falter in fear? But what became of the Watcher's legacy? A mystery lingered, waiting to be unraveled. Where did the giants go, and what secrets did Enoch carry to the heavens? The Book of Enoch leaves us with haunting questions that echo through the ages. What happened to the Nephilim after the flood? Did their legacy vanish with the waters, or do traces linger in the shadows of history? In 1 Enoch 15, we learn their physical bodies perished, yet their spirits, described as evil spirits, remained, troubling humanity with whispers of rebellion. Could echoes of their rebellion still haunt our world today? Some scholars, like Michael Heiser, point to ancient myths, tales of giants in Greek, Norse, and Native American traditions as echoes of Enoch's account, suggesting their influence persisted across cultures. Others connect these spirits to Ephesians 6:12's warning of spiritual forces of evil, proposing that the Nephilim's legacy endures in unseen battles that shape our world. The mystery of their fate keeps us searching, wondering if the past still influences our present in ways we cannot fully grasp, a question that stirs both curiosity and awe. Yet the enigma deepens with Enoch himself and his celestial visions. Enoch's writings, detailed in 1 Enoch 14-36, describe journeys through heavenly realms that defy imagination. He saw the prisons where the Watchers were bound, their cries echoing in caverns of darkness, a fate that underscores God's unyielding justice. He gazed upon paradise, a realm of light where the righteous would dwell, its rivers sparkling with divine glory, as described in 1 Enoch 32. These were not mere dreams, but divine revelations, offering glimpses of God's cosmic plan, a plan that spans creation to eternity. Why were these visions hidden? Some believe the early church suppressed the book, fearing its apocalyptic imagery was too overwhelming for new believers, as noted by scholars like E. Isaac. Others argue it was preserved in secret, entrusted to communities like the Essenes, awaiting a time when humanity was ready to receive its truths. The Book of Enoch's survival through centuries suggests a divine purpose, a call to explore the unseen realities that shape our faith. But clues to this mystery still emerge in our modern age. The discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls in 1947 brought Enoch's words back to light, with fragments found in Qumran caves confirming the book's antiquity, dating back centuries before Christ. These texts, studied by scholars like Geza Vermes, reveal the Book of Enoch's influence on early Jewish and Christian thought, with echoes in the New Testament, such as Jude 1:14-15's direct quote from Enoch's prophecy about God's judgment. Could these texts hold keys to understanding our spiritual past and our future? Some connect Enoch's descriptions of fallen angels to modern phenomena, unexplained events, spiritual unrest, or cultural fascination with the supernatural, from ancient alien theories to horror films. The Book of Enoch challenges us to wrestle with the unseen, to question what lies beyond history's veil, and to consider whether the Nephilim's spiritual legacy might still influence our world in subtle, unseen ways as we navigate a society often drawn to darkness over light. Enoch's visions of paradise and judgment were not just for his time. They were prophecies, pointing to a day when God's kingdom would be fully revealed, a hope that aligns with Revelation 21's vision of a new heaven and earth where God dwells with his people. His book invites us to ponder our place in this cosmic story, to ask whether we, like the ancients, ignore warnings of spiritual rebellion. Are we attentive to the spiritual battles around us, or do we dismiss them as mere myths? The mystery of Enoch's text is not just about giants or angels, it's about the eternal truths God entrusted to a prophet, truths that call us to seek him with all our hearts. As Jeremiah 29:13 promises, the Book of Enoch, once hidden, now stands as a testament to God's enduring plan, urging us to look beyond the material world and embrace the spiritual realities that shape our destiny, realities that echo in our own lives today. Yet Enoch's visions pointed to something greater, a promise that still speaks today. Ancient prophecies whispered of a restoration that would heal a broken world. The Book of Enoch is not merely a tale of rebellion and judgment, it's a radiant beacon of hope, illuminating God's ultimate plan for creation. In 1 Enoch 25-27, Enoch's visions unveil a divine promise, a new heaven and earth where the righteous will dwell in a paradise free from corruption, a city of light where God's presence reigns forever, radiant with glory. This prophecy echoes Revelation 21:1-4, where John describes a new Jerusalem where tears and pain are no more, and God himself wipes away every sorrow. The fall of the Watchers and the tyranny of the Nephilim were not the end, but a chapter in a grand story of redemption, a story that points to God's unyielding commitment to restore what sin had shattered. The Book of Enoch, though ancient, speaks to our hearts today, offering hope to those weary of a world scarred by chaos and division. But how does this ancient promise speak to us now? Enoch's writings emphasize God's sovereignty, his power to redeem even the darkest moments of history. The flood, foretold in 1 Enoch 10, cleansed the earth of corruption, but God's covenant with Noah, as recorded in Genesis 9:11, pointed to a greater salvation through Christ. The Book of Enoch, though hidden for centuries, foreshadows this truth. Jesus' sacrifice on the cross fulfilled the promise of restoration, offering forgiveness to all who turn to him, as John 3:16 proclaims. Today, we see this prophecy unfolding in the spread of the gospel, the resilience of faith in persecuted communities, and the longing for justice in a world still wrestling with sin. The Book of Enoch's apocalyptic imagery, its visions of judgment and paradise, served as a foundation for early Christian hope, influencing texts like the Book of Revelation and reminding believers that God's plan is eternal, unbroken by human or angelic rebellion, a truth that anchors us in times of uncertainty. Yet the prophecy invites us to look closer at our own time. The rediscovery of the Book of Enoch among the Dead Sea Scrolls in 1947 suggests a divine timing, as if God intended its truths to resurface in an age of doubt and spiritual searching. Scholars like John J. Collins note its impact on Second Temple Judaism, shaping expectations of a Messiah who would conquer evil and usher in God's kingdom. Could its reemergence today be a call to prepare for Christ's return, as Matthew 24:42 urges us to stay watchful? The Book of Enoch reminds us that God's promises are unbreakable, even when veiled by centuries of silence. Its visions of paradise, a mountain of God, a tree of life, offer hope to those weary of this world's chaos, pointing to a future where, as Isaiah 25:8 promises, God will swallow up death forever. This is not a distant dream, but a reality that shapes how we live today, urging us to seek God's kingdom with urgency and faith, to live as ambassadors of his love in a world desperate for hope. Enoch's words challenge us to align our lives with God's eternal plan. The Watcher's fall teaches us to guard against pride and temptation, while the Nephilim's destruction warns of the consequences of unchecked sin. Yet the promise of paradise offers hope, a reminder that God's kingdom is near, as Jesus declared in Mark 1:15. This isn't mere history, It's a call to action, to live with purpose, to share the gospel, and to trust in a Savior who redeems all things. The Book of Enoch's rediscovery invites us to see our world through spiritual eyes, to recognize the battles, both seen and unseen, that shape our lives. What would it look like to live as if this prophecy were unfolding in your life right now? Would you pray more boldly, love more deeply, or forgive more freely? The Book of Enoch bridges the ancient and the modern, calling us to be part of God's redemptive story, a story that began with creation and will end in glory, with Christ at its center. But what does this mean for you today? Let's bring it home. You are not facing giants of old, but giants of fear, doubt, temptation today. How will their ancient story shape your journey? The Book of Enoch isn't a dusty relic locked in the past. It's a living mirror reflecting our own lives, our battles, and our hopes. Like the people of Enoch's time, we face giants, not of flesh and bone, but of doubt, fear, and temptation that loom large in our hearts, threatening to steal our peace. The Watcher's rebellion, driven by pride and desire, warns us of the dangers of straying from God's path, while Enoch's unwavering faith inspires us to walk closely with our Creator, even when the world pulls us away. What if you lived with such devotion that your life became a testament to God's glory, a light in a world shadowed by chaos? The Book of Enoch challenges us to examine our hearts, to choose faith over rebellion, and to trust in a God who sees every struggle and hears every prayer, as Psalm 139, 1-4 assures us of His intimate knowledge of our lives. But let's make this personal. Consider the Watcher's fall, a caution against chasing desires that lead us astray. Are there areas in your life where pride, anger, or temptation pull you from God's truth? The Book of Enoch, in 1 Enoch 15, reminds us that sin's consequences are real, yet God's mercy is greater, as Romans 5:20 declares that where sin abounds, grace abounds more. Enoch's courage, standing before fallen angels to declare God's judgment, calls us to be bold in our faith, even when it's unpopular or costly. Imagine yourself in that ancient world, surrounded by the Nephilim's tyranny and the Watcher's corruption. Would you cling to hope, like the righteous few who trusted God's promises? Your giants may be different, financial struggles, broken relationships, or spiritual doubts, but they are no less real. Yet, as Romans 8:37 assures, we are more than conquerors through Christ who loves us. The Book of Enoch invites us to see our challenges through the lens of faith, to trust that God is working, even in our darkest moments, weaving a story of redemption in our lives. And here's the secret we promised at the start. The Book of Enoch reveals a profound truth. God's plan never fails. Despite the Watcher's rebellion, the Nephilim's destruction, and centuries of silence, His promises endure, as unshakable as the mountains Enoch saw in his visions. This truth transforms how we live, with purpose, with faith, with hope. The flood cleansed the earth, but Christ's sacrifice cleansed our hearts, fulfilling Enoch's prophecies and offering redemption to all, as 1 Peter 1:18-19 declares that we were redeemed by the precious blood of Christ. Now that you know this truth, what will you do with it? Will you let it spark a new step in your journey? A deeper trust in God's promises? A bolder witness to His love? The Book of Enoch's rediscovery is a call to action, urging us to live as Enoch did, with eyes fixed on heaven and hearts anchored in faith, ready to face our giants with the strength God provides. But this story doesn't end with reflection. It calls for action. Enoch's example challenges us to seek God daily, to study His Word, and to live as lights in a dark world, as Matthew 5:16 urges. Start small. Pray for strength to overcome your giants. Share your faith with a friend, or forgive someone who's hurt you. These acts echo Enoch's faithfulness, building a life rooted in God's truth. The Book of Enoch reminds us that we're part of a larger story, one that began in the ancient world but continues in our lives today. Your struggles, your victories, your prayers, they matter in God's eternal plan. Maybe today is the day you take that first step toward a closer walk with Him, trusting that He is faithful, as Hebrews 10:23 promises. How did this story resonate with you? If it spoke to your heart, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, where we can encourage one another in this journey of faith. Now, let's tie it all together with a truth that changes everything. Now, let's tie it all together with a truth that changes everything. The truth of Enoch's story is simple yet profound. God's promises never fade. From the rebellion of the Watchers to the hope of paradise, the Book of Enoch reveals a God who sees every fall, hears every cry, and restores every broken story. The Watchers' betrayal and the Nephilim's tyranny couldn't derail his plan. His love was too vast, his purpose too enduring. Through Enoch's visions, we see a God who redeems chaos into order, who turns despair into hope, and who offers paradise to those who seek him, as Revelation 22, 1-5 paints a picture of a river of life flowing from his throne. Your struggles, your doubts, your pain are not the end of your story. They're chapters in a divine narrative, one that God is writing with grace, as Ephesians 2, 8-9 reminds us that salvation is a gift of his love. The flood cleansed the earth, but Christ's sacrifice cleansed our hearts, fulfilling Enoch's prophecies and opening the way to eternal life, as John 10:10 promises abundant life through him. Today, let this truth anchor you. No giant is too big, no darkness too deep, for a God who restores all things. If this journey through Enoch's forbidden history stirred your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and pass this video to someone who needs hope. Your support helps spread these stories of faith to a world searching for truth. And stay tuned, because next we'll explore the lost prophecies of Daniel, a journey that will deepen your awe of God's eternal plan. Subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss it. The giants may be gone, but your battle for faith rages on. The story continues. What will your next chapter hold?